I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, as March break comes to an end, the return to school will look a little different this time, with mask restrictions lifting.
Teachers are very anxious about the unmasking situation.
Why some teachers and parents say they'll continue to mask up. Plus,
if that was a gun, I mean, the turnout would have been totally different.
we hear from a man who witnessed what police are investigating as a possible hate-motivated assault at a Mississauga mosque. And
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy St. Patrick's Day!
a look at the first large-scale in-person event the city has seen since pre-COVID.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Thanks for joining us. The decision whether to mask up or not will now largely be in your own hands. The mask mandate in Ontario lifts tomorrow. The change comes along with some warnings that case counts could soon rise. Talia Ricci has our top story tonight, including some expert advice you may want to think about in the coming weeks.
For some, the idea of seeing many people choosing to be maskless on Monday brings anxiety.
I am worried about it. Because for the fact that my son is medically fragile, and if he were to pick up even just the common cold, it could be detrimental to his health.
The province is lifting the mask mandate for most indoor settings, including schools. Health experts and officials say people should weigh their own risks when deciding whether to wear one. Shanna Gonsalves is choosing to remain cautious.
How we're preparing ourselves and the nurses and anybody who's working around him, we're asking that they wear the mask for at least 3 weeks after to get over that hump.
The president of Elementary Teachers of Toronto says several teachers will also be masking up for a while after March break.
Yes, teachers understand they're going to have to live with COVID, but they want a cautious approach to the return. Teachers are very anxious about the unmasking situation. They want a safe return from March break. Many people have traveled during this time.
Modeling by Ontario's Science Advisory Table shows there could be an increase in infections and hospitalizations in the coming weeks as a result of lifting the mandate. But experts say the increase should be manageable, with a large percentage of the population vaccinated.
It's not black or white. As long as we take it slow, gradually, we should be okay. It's just not pretending it's over. There's a light switch, and from tomorrow we go back to pre-pandemic. We're not.
Dr. Peter Uni still recommends people remain cautious in busy indoor environments.
Depends on what we're doing. So first of all, on the streets is not a problem. Outside is not an issue. So you don't have to wear a mask if you're outside. I think inside we can and we probably should still wear masks right now. Schools, there are school boards, for example, who just make strong recommendations now to wear masks.
While Gonsalves is feeling nervous about the weeks ahead, she's also trying to remain optimistic.
But in the end, I think we have to remember we can only control ourselves.
Mandates will still remain in places like public transit, shelters, long-term care, and retirement homes. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
To a situation in northwestern Ontario now that we've been watching closely. A First Nation community is dealing with a COVID outbreak. Yesterday, the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, Bill Blair, tweeted that the federal government is sending Canadian Forces Rangers to Deer Lake First Nation. The Sioux Lookout First Nations Health Authority is one of the health partners that works closely with the community to offer support and case and contact management. According to their numbers, Deer Lake currently has at least 241 active cases.
We're really quite still at the height of our Omicron surge. What we've seen in this outbreak and across the other outbreaks is that there's overcrowding, due to inadequate houses. That makes cases very hard to control. So we continue to recommend a 10-day isolation for the case and their household and even non-household contacts. All of this has an impact on not just the physical well-being, but also the mental and emotional and spiritual well-being of the community. So all of that is priorities in the response.
Deer Lake First Nation is nearly 600 kilometers northwest of Thunder Bay near the Manitoba border. Well, in other news tonight, a 24-year-old man is facing multiple charges after an assault at a Mississauga mosque that police believe was motivated by hate. Officers allege the man walked into the mosque wielding a hatchet and blasting bear spray. It happened early Saturday at the Al-Tawhid Islamic Center. Tonight, Peel police have confirmed that a video that's been circulating online shows the suspect takedown. This was the scene after police arrived, with bear spray still in the air. You can see people coughing. A few suffered minor injuries related to that bear spray. We spoke to a man who was there.
We're able to, immediately, take him down to prevent further, harm.
Do we have Greg Ross?
to the congregants, because I think, I'm thankful enough that he did not have anything, more dangerous in his hand other than the axe. I'm not saying the axe is not dangerous, but I'm talking about comparing to a gun, because if that was a gun, the turnout would have been totally different. We will come through this together, and we will still go to the mosque, but we will have to find an avenue, how to better secure the place to make sure that nothing like this happens in the future.
Sorelli says he is still processing what happened, and he says he's in contact with other witnesses and they'll continue to support each other as they heal from this alleged assault. Peel police say the investigation, including more into the suspect's motive, is ongoing. Free Ukraine Square, the city officially renaming the busy intersection at Yonge and St. Clair just outside of the Russian consulate as part of the Stand with Ukraine movement.
We hope that every single person, every single day that walks in to that Russian consulate, we want to send a message to them.
I'd like to introduce to you our counselor.
A strong message for the Russian consulate. Mayor Tory also saying the street signs will serve as a reminder to all Canadians to continue to support Ukraine. Well, meantime, a vigil taking place tonight in downtown Toronto brought together a big show of support for the people of Ukraine. Our Greg Ross was there.
They lit candles, waved flags, and prayed. The crowd's so big, it spilled out onto the street in front of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress.
The message is hope.
Mark Schweck is the chair of the Stand with Ukraine Committee for the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress. He says it's important for Canadians to stand up and show their support for the people of Ukraine.
We're extremely happy that Canadians from coast to coast have been supportive.
Do you think people in Ukraine are seeing this support?
As a matter of fact, not only do I think, we know that. They write us all the time. We watch your rallies. We love them when we're down. We're sitting in a bomb shelter in the building in the basement. We got nothing to do. We're watching.
The Ukraine is our homeland.
This couple who moved to Canada 9 years ago were at this vigil to support their family members still in Ukraine, including this woman's grandparents who live in Kyiv.
They didn't want to go because it's their land. They were born there and they want to die there if it's going to be that.
She says many of their other family members are now refugees in neighboring countries.
Well, my aunt left all her belongings there. She just took documents and her 2 children.
These strollers represent the more than 100 children who have died in the war in Ukraine. Organizers here say their deaths should be a signal to the world that more needs to be done.
Is it 110 children, 1,000 children, 10,000 children, 100,000 civilians? Is it going to be a nuclear plant that blows up? What is the red line that Russia will cross when the Americans who lead the West finally say enough is enough?
They say rallies like this one and others like it across the world won't stop until the war is over and Ukrainian people can once again go home. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, let's head to Ukraine now. Our Susan Ormiston continues to report from inside the war-torn country. Tonight, President Zelensky pleading for more international support as the fighting rages on and the waves of uprooted civilians roll across Europe and inside Ukraine itself. Here's more from Susan.
faces creased with worry, going into a fourth week of war, reflecting on the last brutal days with more to come, drawing strength from their faith when all else around them is crumbling. Every Sunday, more come to Lviv from all over Ukraine, fleeing Russian missiles in the east. This Ukrainian Orthodox church follows a Moscow bishop, but the war has triggered a rift. The local priests couldn't speak with us, but a sign says the Lviv diocese condemns the war started by Russia. The church is a sanctuary. Tatiana Samsonova fled her home near Kiev.
Did you ever think that this would happen?
No, never, she says. We thought we were brothers. Brothers won't beat brothers. It was shocking for us. Her 8-year-old daughter Margarita begins to cry. I want to go back home, she says. The UN now says 10 million Ukrainians are displaced out of their homes. Others are trapped mercilessly in Mariupol basements, abandoning the shells of once homes and bodies on the street. Ukraine says another Russian airstrike hit an art school. Maybe 400 people could be buried. In Kiev, more shelling near an apartment building. Russia claiming it launched 2 new hypersonic missiles targeting fuel and ammunition depots, as President Zelensky raised the prospect of direct negotiations with President Putin.
But if these attempts fail, that would mean that this is a third world war.
A long war is still unthinkable. A month ago, Sunday was a peaceful pause. Now no one can predict their futures. Svetlana Suglob and her kids just got off the train from the Donbass.
Anna, what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. I see that everything is very bad. Nothing stops. Nothing good will be there. She dreams she'll have her home to come back to. They are clinging now to the power of faith and resilience to endure this war.
President Zelensky is putting stock in negotiations. It's time to talk, he said this weekend. But the U.S. is cautioning President Putin gives no indication he's giving way and that any talks may not result in any agreed compromise soon. Susan Olmstead, CBC News, Lviv.
Meantime, closer to home, dozens of demonstrators marched in downtown Ottawa, calling on the federal government to grant permanent immigration status to migrants, refugees, and undocumented people.
As a refugee, you are sleeping with one eye closed. You can't do anything. You are so scared that tomorrow somebody is going to knock your door and you are gone. Begging, we are seeking, we are pleading to the ministers, to the Prime Minister, to give status to all.
The group marched 1.6 kilometers to the Office of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada. They say that distance symbolizes the roughly 1.6 million residents in Canada without permanent status. CBC reached out to both the Office of Immigration as well as the minister, but did not hear back before airtime. The MP for Parry Sound Muskoka has officially made his bid to become the next leader of the Conservative Party, Scott Aitchison, kicking off his campaign in Huntsville, where he was mayor from 2014 to 2019.
Right here in Huntsville is where I learned what real leadership is. I learned to inspire the team around me. I learned to inspire our community and empower citizens with an open and transparent government. Today, Canada needs the kind of inclusive, engaged, and compassionate leadership that I learned right here.
Focus on positivity and cooperation. This comes as the race has already been characterized by some tense back and forth between some of the leading candidates, including Pierre Poilievre and Patrick Brown. The leadership convention is set for September. A warning tonight about rising water for those living north of Kitchener. A flood warning has been issued for Elora to West Montrose. Officials say residents should stay away from bodies of water as the temperatures rise and the ice melts. A flood watch is also in place for the rest of the Grand River watershed. Sophia is here with our first look at the forecast. And yes, an important reminder, you know, it's getting warmer, but things can be dicey when the ice melts and water rises.
Yeah, still that concern as the warm up for the next 24 hours that we could have an ice lodge dislodged and blocking some of these low-lying waterways. It's a common concern of spring, which let me be the first to congratulate you, Shannon, and everybody at home watching. We did it. We made it through winter. Spring is here. Temperatures are still above the seasonal average. What a first day of spring it was today. I spent it at a sugar bush, tapping and tasting maple syrup. What a perfect Canadian way to welcome in spring. Really clear night out there, perfect for stargazing. Will be just above the freezing mark for the overnight period. Beautiful sunshine for the morning. Afternoon, we are still above the seasonal average. Late day showers, but really it's the cloud deck that moves in into the afternoon and sticks around till Tuesday. That will actually do wonders for dropping our temperatures into Wednesday and ushering in a midweek system that will scream, we're not done with winter yet. I'll tell you about that in the long range, Shannon.
Thanks, Sophia. We'll see you soon.
See you then.
Welcome back. Premier Doug Ford is traveling to Washington tomorrow, marking his first trip to the U.S. since the border blockades interrupted international trade for days. A source told CBC that Ford is meeting with officials in the Biden administration to reaffirm Ontario is a safe and reliable place to invest and do business. The Premier will also take part in roundtable discussions with members of the Canadian American Business Council. Warnings tonight about further supply chain headaches, all stemming from a labor dispute at CP Rail. Freight cars are parked as a federal mediator oversees continued talks between the company and Teamsters Rail Union. As Marina von Stackelberg shows us, that means grain, fertilizer, and coal are not heading to customers in this country and beyond.
CP's engineers, conductors, and yard workers are walking a picket line over more than 24 unsettled contract issues, like wages, working conditions, benefits, and pensions.
All throughout the pandemic, we've been slugging it out in the trenches, keeping supply lines going, working in a challenging work environment. We do feel for the customers and the country.
The union and the company are blaming each other for the shutdown. Teamsters Canada Rail Conference says the railway locked out workers overnight. CP says it didn't do that, but that employees walked off the job.
We've been bargaining in good faith to avoid this kind of disruption and bring any of this uncertainty to an end.
Without an end soon, the shipment of commodities like grain, lumber, and oil will remain stalled. Industry groups and farmers say Ottawa has to act now to get the trains rolling again. The sheer volume of freight that's not moving will pile up quickly and at great expense. But Canada's Labour Minister gave no sign that back-to-work legislation is being considered.
I am singularly focused on that table, at the people at it, and getting a deal so that we can at least have some degree of normality in the Canadian economy.
Farmer Chuck Fossey is worried. His bin is full of grain that is supposed to be sent out on a CP train.
Many farmers are very stressed out because of the poor crops they had last year, and now they're just being stressed one more time.
Now this year's crops are also in jeopardy. Many farmers are relying on shipments of fertilizer in the coming weeks. 3/4 of it comes by rail.
If it's all over and done with within 10 days, then it's more of a hiccup than a panic. But if it lasts and carries on for weeks on end, it could be a very big issue indeed.
That supply chain expert thinks the federal government will likely step in if things drag on. Industry leaders and farmers say this is the worst possible time for a labor dispute. Canada's economy is already reeling from supply chain issues, the rising cost of gas, and now an inflation rate that is record-setting. There are also concerns that Canada's reputation as a reliable supplier of goods could take another hit. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Winnipeg.
For the first time in 2 years, the St. Patrick's Day Parade made its way through the streets of downtown Toronto, much to the delight of people young and old. It is the first large-scale in-person event the city has seen since pre-COVID.
They've missed so much in the last 2 years, and so with the pandemic and everything, it's just been, we've been isolating a lot and not being able to enjoy, so we got ourselves out today with our chairs and we're excited to be here.
Now that things are opening up again, we're excited to start getting back outside and going to things like this.
Irish pubs also getting in the spirit today, serving up pints of Guinness and plenty of good cheer. Sophia is back, and yes, plenty to celebrate today because it's the first day of spring, and you said it, woohoo, we made it, right?
You know what I love about some of those visuals as well? When you see people out on the streets for the beginning of spring, you have a bunch of people still dressed for winter, a bunch dressed for spring, and then a few, well, right into summer with shorts and things like I saw there today. And we're still actually sitting above the seasonal average, which is quite nice. So embrace spring for as long as it lasts, because boy, it really was quite the winter. We averaged about 50 centimeters more as far as our yearly average for snow than we normally do. So if you think the snowbanks were bigger this year, well, you're not wrong. We alluded to the short range forecast earlier. Warm for Monday, about 5 degrees above the seasonal average. Cool down back to seasonal for Tuesday with clouds. And then for Wednesday, back down to winter-like temperatures hovering around the freezing mark. And then this system comes in. Now, I'm not pausing this or slowing this down. This is how slow-moving this system is. It actually stalls out over the Huron shores and creates kind of a perfect storm of a few different things. A northeast wind, which brings in cooler air over top of the lakes, and precipitation, a perfect recipe for the potential of a prolonged ice event. Yeah, I slowed down for that because this system screams that winter is not done with us yet. For those of you kind of Kitchener, Elora to Mount Forest, there is the potential for prolonged icing, power outages, tree damage. And just south of the border, a stone's throw away in places like Ohio, it'll be 20 degrees under the warm front. Most of us will be in rain, but here's the thing, the temperatures midweek will be hovering around the freezing mark, which means even if you start off as rain, it could get slick with a wintry mix and some icy surfaces. So Wednesday could be a dicey day. It's still a far ways out, so we're watching it. Temperatures in behind that midweek system, though, warm up, and then the rest of this upper trough just becomes typical rainy week with muddy puddles and muddy dog paws and all the good stuff, Shannon.
Thanks so much, Sophia. We'll be keeping track of the weather with you for midweek.
We'll see you next weekend.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We leave you now with some video from one of our producers checking out Comic-Con taking over downtown Toronto this weekend. It's always so much fun to see everybody in their costumes. Thank you so much for being here with us. There you go. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next weekend.